Hi, I'm Kimberley Gardiner. This is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
Well, it's not often that we get a chance to sit in studio with a guest. In fact, this is the first time.
I feel honored.
Kimberley Gardiner, welcome to New York City. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's really, really fun to be here. And it's so cool to be in real life, in a real studio.
We are in real life. We're in a real studio, the New York Auto Show, and life as we know it is a little bit better, right? But you tell me. I mean, from an automotive perspective, you've been living in the COVID world for the last 2 years, and now we're out. We feel better about where we are.
Yeah, it definitely feels like things are on the way up. I think being here in New York City, the vitality, the vibrancy, energy, it's back up again. I think seeing folks here at the show, it's been fabulous to see smiling faces. I think a lot of optimism, and I think we're hopefully turning a corner. So it's a good time to be it's a good time to be here.
What did you learn during COVID?
Oof. I think, like a lot of people, I learned what's important for me personally. You know, you have a
Mm,
lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to be on your own, a lot of time with close friends or family that you had to keep in your bubble for quite a long time. And so for me, I learned, it's okay to question, I think, pretty much everything, right? Question what you do, question the way you spend your time. I realized how much I missed seeing people after the first few weeks, and then fast forward a few months, and you realize, Zoom and all these things are great, but the connection to being with people in person, I need to value that more. And I think we all did that during COVID for
yeah,
sure.
I mean, technology is great, but it has its limitations. And, when you're trying to launch vehicles, it's also incredibly difficult. And I can imagine the scrambling that was going on because I know how organized and planned and well executed things are in the automotive world from a marketing standpoint. Though, all of a sudden you had to flip into a different mode.
Yeah.
It must have been a scramble.
I think it was, and I think in the beginning too, we weren't sure where is this going, and so do we do a little bit online? Do we wait and see if things come back again? Do we postpone? Do we cancel? And I think in a few months in, after a few of us did live streaming and different ways of launching a car like that, that it seemed to stick, and it seemed to be that people were slowly starting to engage in that way. I think cars are something that if you can, well, if you can touch them, if you can feel them, if you can sit in them, if you can drive in them, that's really where the magic happens. That's really hard to do virtually. But I think we've done a good job, a really good job actually, of making sure people still feel that passion remotely and get really beautiful shots of cars and make people feel kind of alive again. And I think the timing was really nice in a way because I've talked about kind of this renaissance happening in cars and automotive. And I think a lot of young people that didn't really care so much about cars or sort of a second thought, not really, wow, I can't wait to get that first car. I can't wait to get in my car. And I think COVID brought us to a new place where we felt like, yeah, cars are really essential
No
and
kidding.
cars are freedom, right? And road tripping and even just running errands. It was a time where you could actually get out of your home for a bit, be safe in your own environment, see the world around you. And it was fun to see cars embraced in a completely new way. And people that hadn't bought a car here in New York that called me and said, KG, I don't have a car. I haven't had a car in 10 years. I feel like I need to get one. So I think coming out of all that now, it feels like the world has evolved. And I think in a really positive way for automotive.
Almost was personal protective equipment to some
Yeah,
extent, right? I mean, you
absolutely.
could control your own environment during COVID, be in a car, and go wherever you wanted to go on your own terms.
You could, yeah, and you call the shots, and I think it's something where people felt like they had some control over their surroundings, and you could get out and enjoy a little bit of fun here and there. You could
Yeah.
celebrate drive-by birthday parties and things like that that we saw during COVID. So I'm excited for today going forward. I know we're still not out of COVID by any stretch, but it feels like, again, we are very fortunate, I think, as an industry. And I think just people that love cars, that it's nice, it's refreshing, it's energizing to hear people talk about cars in a whole new way. So maybe that's a bit of a silver lining for what's happened in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no kidding. We're going to talk about some of the cars that you've got coming up, but I want to talk about your own history because when I listen to you, I hear the passion for automotive. Did you grow up a young girl interested in cars? I mean, no,
No. No, I didn't. My story of getting into auto was all about environmental work. So
because you were in that field.
I was in
You,
that field,
yeah.
right out of college. So I did that for a number of years, and then I thought, I want to make change happen. I think I always have, but I'm somebody who wants to do it in the most effective way possible. So doing environmental work was great and rewarding sometimes, but a lot of hard times at the same time. You're either a nonprofit and government, that kind of thing. I wanted to try to do that within a company that was committed to doing something in terms of their environmental practice. And
What was the environmental work? Where did you start, and what was your goal?
yeah,
Were you going to save the planet for us?
how did you know? Literally, that was how I think I woke up. It was in high school, and then again, it was like right after I graduated from undergrad, and I kind of had the talk with myself, like, all right, KG, like, what are you going to do with your life? And I knew for sure I wanted to do something that made a difference, that I could make personal for not only my own convictions, but also for young kids. So I started off with something as simple as doing recycling education in San Diego County for a number of years. And then I transitioned and moved to New Zealand and was there for several years doing that plus waste minimization, cleaner production, basically helping individuals, companies, schools, families try to figure out how to ways that they can minimize their impact. And it looks different for everybody. But my whole thing was, little by little, you can make some change happen and people can feel really good about it. That was all great, but I wanted to go to grad school. And in grad school, I thought, well, not only do I need to pay for the MBA, but I need to really figure out very quickly what industry I think would be a good fit for that passion that I had of the environment. And I wanted to work in something that really mattered in people's lives. And auto was such a natural choice for me. And the Prius was about to come out. So
That's right.
perfect timing.
You went to Toyota. The
Hmm.
Prius was there, so
Hmm.
the environmentalist in you
Yeah.
sought the car that was going to save the planet. At least
Hmm.
that's how it was marketed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a huge change in terms of how people thought about cars and what was possible and what is possible today. So, back then hybrids were sort of like, what is this? How does this work? Do I have to plug it in? How do I drive it? And today it's part of everyday life. And now we have plug-in hybrids and EVs and hydrogen powered cars and all kinds of things. So that to me was a moment where I knew I could make a real impact and I could be challenged in a completely different way. And I think I've stayed in auto for all these years for the same exact reason, right?
Hmm.
There are a lot of challenges. Things are changing. They may not change as fast as we want, but I think transportation is something that will be ever evolving.
What was your first impression of the auto industry when you got into it?
Uh, um, I didn't realize how long it takes to launch a car. So when I
You
first
can't
joined
do this in 30
yeah,
days.
exactly. Right. My first meeting, I think I thought, wow, this is, we're going to launch a car. It's going to be coming up in 6 months or a year. And instead it was, many years away. So it was interesting to talk about things like that were happening over the course of a long, long time. And so I had to develop patience very quickly because I thought, okay, marketing, let's go do this. And it's a 6, 12 max kind of thing. Um, and keeping that patience, I think, together over maybe 3 to 5 years was something that I learned quickly and I actually appreciated. So yeah, it's cool.
Commercials, marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the sexy side of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, putting car commercials together and it was sound and it's vibrant and events.
Hmm.
That had to have been a real draw for you as well.
Yeah, I think connecting with people is something that I've always really loved. So whether you do that through TV, whether you do that through radio, whether you do that through digital now and social media, I enjoy connecting with people, trying to make something new to them, relevant to them. And I think that's why I've also really appreciated new times, either with Toyota, with Prius and Lexus with their hybrid lineup, and going over to Kia and then Mitsubishi and now Volkswagen, always wanting to come in and try to make things a little bit better and really move the needle. And I think that connecting with people and convincing them to try this brand is something that I think will always be an interesting opportunity and challenge for me personally.
You've told me privately about a couple of instances in the auto industry that maybe were uncomfortable for you. You had a dealer once tell you, I mean, speaking of changing the world, right?
Right.
You had a dealer say something to you relative to that. Tell me that story.
Yeah. So we were looking to what we called reimagine the digital experience with Toyota years ago. And that meant that we were trying to make things easier for the customer to learn about, shop for, and ultimately down the road buy a vehicle. And I remember wanting to hear from dealers and talking to them around the country about what our plans were because we wanted dealers to be a part of this, right? They're a huge part of the car shopping and buying process. And so I had a meeting with a very successful, very solid, great dealer. And I remember telling him about, reimagining the world around digital and around car shopping and buying. And I thought, this has got to happen, right? And if anybody needs to do it, it's got to be us. And now's our time. And young people want things to be different. And we have to change. And he said, oh, wait a second, wait a second. You're not just talking about a website here. You're not just talking about some tweet thingy or something like that. You're actually really talking about something much bigger. You're talking about changing the industry. And I said, well, I guess I am. Yeah. He said, oh, well, how cute. Oh, cute. Okay. And I thought, yeah, cute, I guess. But I think he meant it in a positive way, but at the same time, it's
Mm,
like, yeah, this isn't cute. This is like real world
yeah, a
stuff.
bit of a pat on the
And
head there, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
but
cute.
that's okay. I think change is kind of a scary thing for a lot of people. It is for most people, in fact. And so if it takes a little bit of time to get to know somebody and maybe pivot their brain a little bit, I'm okay with that being a hard thing to do. But hopefully they feel like the sooner I think you take change seriously and get into it and embrace it, especially for our industry, I think the better, right? Like you spend more time figuring out what to do differently, customers wanting things, and you focus on solving pain points and creating new opportunities. That's where we need to lean into, not pushing change off so long that by the time we get there, maybe in our case, consumers move past it.
You are trying to change things from a employment standpoint and a workforce focus, in that you'd like younger people to think about the car industry in a different way. You
Yeah,
want them to think that it's cool,
yeah, it is cool.
men and women, right? And that's a real purpose for you.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Where does that come from, and why do you want to do it?
I look around over my 20 plus years in auto, a lot of meetings I've been, boardrooms, situations where I'm usually one of the only, have been one of the only women in the room. So for a long time, looking at how can we bring in more women into decision-making circles, meetings, conversations. How do we make sure their voices are heard? That's changed dramatically over many years, right? So today, that doesn't happen so much, mostly with dealers and things like that. But I think today, really, it's not only about women bringing in to the industry, but I think it's about just diverse folks with different types of backgrounds. And that's what our industry needs. I think we need people that are young. I think we need people that are young at heart at any age,
Mm-hmm.
but that see an opportunity to connect with a consumer and hopefully a way that feels refreshing and different, because our products are changing. So the way we interact with consumers, I think, has a great opportunity to change. And I feel bringing in new voices, new talent into our industry is a really key part of that.
How are you doing that?
Uh, a lot of talking. So a lot of getting to know people through LinkedIn, getting to know people in conferences and, talks that I do and things like that. I just did one yesterday for media posts here at the show. And I said, it's such a great time to be in automotive. And I look around the room and I see, now, how many of you actually thought, you would ever be in automotive? Maybe yes, maybe no. But how many of you know people that want to be in it now? Well, maybe not so many. We got to change that.
Hmm.
So how can I get your help to do that? Right? We can tell a different story about who we are. It's not just the cars that we make. That's all great, right? But those things are changing, and we have electrification that's not only coming, it's here. The interaction people have with cars has changed, like we talked about. Everything is evolving around us. And if you want to be part of an industry that is at the cutting edge of that, that's shaping literally the way people interact with each other, the way people get from A to B, and you want to do it in an environment it's tough. It can be tough, right? You got to have patience, you got to have conviction, you have to have passion. It's hard, but it is so rewarding and so fun because it matters. Cars matter to people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money you're spending. It's a lot of time you're spending in it, regardless of what brand that is, if it's hopefully Volkswagen or another brand that you feel really good about it. And so if you're someone that's up for that type of opportunity, that's going to be different next year than it was this year, and it keeps evolving all the time, then we need you. And tell more people that story, and invite more people in and talk about automotive in maybe more approachable, more accessible ways.
So you're still on the pathway to changing things, just in
Yeah.
a different way.
Yeah.
you're
Just,
you're not a Kiwi anymore in New Zealand, but you're
yeah.
definitely trying to change things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it
But
making a difference? Can you feel that things are changing?
oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you asked me to speak to a marketing group within Volkswagen
Hmm.
that consisted primarily of very young people.
Hmm.
And we talked a lot about the excitement of this industry.
Hmm.
And I saw the excitement in the faces of the folks who are on your team.
Hmm.
I think you're making a difference. Do you feel that you're making a difference?
I think little by little.
Yeah.
I have a lot of expectations for myself. Not that I tell everybody you have to be perfect. I think perfection is not really what we're aiming for in life anymore, but pretty darn close in terms of, you feel pride in what you do, and you feel like you're moving the needle with people and making a difference in their lives. And how I measure that is my team's happiness and their engagement. And are they asking questions of people like you when we do a virtual meeting like that? And not only just about cars, but about why did you get into the industry? Why do you love it? What do you do? What's the most important or most fun thing you've learned in your career? Those are really cool questions. And you're right. After we had that conversation with my team, it was fun to hear many of them say, that's a really great story. And he's been in the industry for a really long time. And he told us something, new and fresh, and coming from journalism, making a pivot now, he's got his own show. It's really cool. And I think making a difference is definitely something that I'm going to keep at for a long time.
Very cool. Let's talk about the things that excite you from a product standpoint. And there is a buzz, so to speak, around what you have at the New York Auto Show, the ID buzz,
Yeah.
which is this sort reincarnation of the 60s Volkswagen a microbus van, the flower power wagon. Yet it's getting great reviews because it's not just a new version of that in look and appearance, but it's been pulled forward in a way, right? It's been modernized. And we talked to Frank Stevenson on this show about modernizing the Mini and how he tried to do that. And you now have a vehicle in front of you that you can have a whole lot of fun with marketing.
Oh yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
ID buzz.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? How are you going to position this car, this vehicle?
This opportunity, I think, with ID Buzz is something so special. Exactly what you said. It's tapping into nostalgia, I think, in a way that is quite unique in the industry, and just in cars in general, because we get to tap into all that goodness that I think the microbus brings out in people. I see them on the streets once in a while, especially out in LA. People take such pride in renovating and redoing their car, and spend a lot of money on them. And it's a whole car culture around that bus that people, I think, remember, whether they had one or not, but it feels, friendly. It feels accessible. It just feels fun. And so we have the beauty of tapping into nostalgia, and then we have electrification in a package with the buzz that I think I've seen people, young and old, older, I should say, that look at that car and go, what is that? That is really cool. And when I tell people, if you look at the car and you don't smile,
you got a problem.
Something's not right.
Right.
Something's not right. So it's going to be a car, I think, for families. I think it's going to be a car for singles. It's going to be a car for a whole lot of people because it's going to be very, I think, functional, very versatile. It looks cool. It drives smooth, right? It's got the best of all those different characteristics. And the driving itself, it feels like you're higher up in a different way than a typical SUV would. So you just feel like you have more visual range of kind of seeing things around you. I think it gives you a little bit more confidence. And again, being inside that car, you just feel futuristic, but you feel relax at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
So so we're going to position it pretty broadly, but I think in the beginning it'll be really fascinating because there's so many people that want that car. I think we're going to have folks from all types of backgrounds and with all types of interests in cars that are going to come out and really embrace it. So it's going to be fun.
You Tracy Morgan pop out of the thing here in New York, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not,
Yeah,
I,
it's
and he
it's
owns a Bugatti, which, by the way, is still in the Volkswagen family. But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely, definitely. So it's just one of those special, I think, unique moments in time for auto where you have a product that has such broad appeal in a really, really positive way.
yeah.
People get in it, they see it, they literally just light up. And I think the world, it sounds maybe a bit, I don't know, nostalgic, but I think people need that right now. You know, my only wish is I wish it was coming a bit sooner, but I think we all do. You know, it's not going to be here in the US until 2024. But we're going to celebrate a lot and we're going to have a lot of fun with that car in the meantime, for sure.
Yeah, I imagine the plans you're going to put together will be extensive. I first saw it roll across the 18th green at Pebble Beach a few years ago
Hmm.
when it was at the Pebble Beach Concours, introduced as a concept vehicle.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
mouths were open and wow, how can I get that? And it's been a long journey with the vehicle.
Yeah,
But
it has.
and you've got some other, I mean, let's talk industry for a moment. There's a delay on a lot of vehicles that are out there for various reasons,
Hmm.
whether it's chip shortages or supply chain issues. Does that make it harder as a marketer to go to market? Because I mean, there are cars at the auto show, but there aren't any
Hmm.
cars on the dealer lots.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a conversation yesterday with some dealers about that very thing. They are selling out of cars even before they get to the
Yeah.
dealerships in many cases. So, I mean, I think what it means is we have to balance the short term and the more longer term connection that we have with consumers. Those folks that need a car right now, we absolutely want to make sure that they get the right information, they get connected to a dealer, they know what's available, and we make sure that they feel like they're well informed and they're confident throughout the process, even though the process is probably a few days, where it used to be maybe several weeks before of doing your homework and thinking about it. Now it's most people that need a car now, they're more in that short term moment. So how can we be helpful to them? I know dealers, sometimes say a car might be coming next week, it might be a bit more delayed, have patience, do what they can to keep the customers engaged and happy and try to figure that out. But at the same time, we need to build more longer term, affinity with our cars, with our dealers, and a bit more, I think, love for the process too. So meaning that how can we make sure our car launch doesn't feel like it's a one and done? It may not be. You see something in a moment, you take action. You may be having to think months and months in advance now. So how do we go to market with content, with stories, with information that feels like it has a longer life cycle?
You're no longer pushing the $3,000 off incentive marketing that
Yeah.
existed forever. Are we on a permanent change, do you feel?
Oh, if I had the answer to that, I'd probably buy the studio. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think some of it will last for a while. I think there's going to be pressure with more demand than supply. But I think as we work our way out of it over the coming months and at least probably the next, year or two, I think that balance will probably be there where we don't hopefully have to rely on heavy incentives like we used to. So will it go back to the way it was? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I kind of hope not, because I think we need to be more transparent with ourselves and with customers, price the car at a fair price and figure out, how to make sure that the message isn't, buy because of the deal. It should be buy because of the product that you want to enjoy.
There's actually some crazy stuff out there now. Dealers who are marking up vehicles, at insane levels over sticker
Hmm.
because you can't get cars. I mean, it's a total supply demand issue.
It is.
And the supply side of it is so thin that it's prompting different kinds of behaviors. And I know a lot of automaker executives have been asked, well, what do you say to your dealers who are charging, $10,000 over sticker on a $40,000 car? What does Volkswagen say about that?
Mm. Um, I mean, I think, dealers, they're independent business people. They make decisions that are right for them, but they definitely can, I think, be part of a more transparent consumer process that is well needed now in a time when consumers are feeling stressed, they're feeling confused, frustrated, inflation, numbers we haven't seen in decades, and feeling like they need to make their pocketbooks, stretch a bit further. And so overpaying for anything right now is stressful. And so
Yeah.
I think for Volkswagen, we're the people's car. We should be on the side of the people. So how can we influence change to make things a little more simplified and, be transparent as much as we possibly can. And I think, like I said before, in the longer term, someone that pays MSRP, pays sticker, plus whatever, add-ons to the car that they need or want or that come with the car, that's a satisfied customer, right? That's a happy customer, and they'll come back,
Yeah, it's a
in a few
relationship,
more
isn't it?
years. Absolutely,
Yeah.
and they'll feel like they got a fair deal, and then they have a better relationship with that dealer, hopefully too, right?
Right.
So they're more likely to come back for service and buy their next car, recommend it to someone else. We can't take a stance in terms of dealer setting price. That is what it is. That's their decision, per franchise laws. But I think we can certainly say, imagine yourself as a consumer these days. We all are. And a fair thing to do is make sure that you're transparent about your pricing, and you try to be as close as you can to MSRP because that's just the right thing.
Let's talk electrification. You're at a brand that is going full steam into electrification, if I can mix that metaphor. Um, the field is much more competitive than it was even just a year ago, with so many other players joining the market. How is Volkswagen going to attract both the early adopters and the first time buyers? And maybe I want to reference your ID4 campaign, where you said before it can change the world, it has to change yours.
Hmm.
I think that's the Volkswagen narrative, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How do we make something almost what I was saying earlier? If you want to change the way people think about something, either a brand or in our case, electrification and electrification for you, then it has to feel like it's something that's right for your situation. So showing the car, right, with all kinds of different people, the content creators and influencers that we worked with, the journalists that got in the vehicle, a whole wide range of backgrounds, some, very much into cars and electrification, absolutely technology oriented, all of that. But a lot of folks that just came from, hey, I've got a family of four, or five, whatever, and I'm thinking about a second car, or I'm thinking about maybe replacing a car. Could this car be right for me? And giving the car to people and saying, take it out for a weekend, test drive it, charge it, see how it feels, or, see how it fits into your life. And a lot of that feedback came from that ID4 campaign, where I feel like the more we make it about someone and what they need first, and then, yes, this happens to be an electric car and it happens to be zero direct emissions. It's very quiet. It's awesome and fun to drive. Then I think that's a really good thing. So yes, and by the way, it's a part of a movement that I think more and more people are waking up to. Data that I just saw yesterday, I think from IHS Market, said that I think it's up to about 50% of younger people are looking or open to buying an EV. That's a number I don't think any of us would have thought through,
No.
so, or would have imagined. So I think it's really, how do we make sure that for a young person, that if this is their first car, their second car, whatever it might be, that we connect with them and say, look, this makes driving easy and it's absolutely manageable. And you can definitely get around, especially if you're in a city where there's good infrastructure for charging. And you can pass those gas stations, especially when gas prices are high
Yeah,
right
no
now. So
kidding. Great timing. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. When you think about the education that needs to go on, how long do you think that we're going to be in this mode of having to tell people how to do things with electric vehicles versus the stuff that we've done forever, which is just to show great product?
Mm. I think it'll be both. I think that we have to woo people by the way cars look. It's great to see so many different EVs in the marketplace that I think people find attractive and they find appealing, and they find it in a body style like the ID4, where it can be for a family, it can be for a single person. It's very flexible, and people like that SUV body style. But at the same time, I think it's something that people can feel like it doesn't have to have an owner manual to explain every single part of it, because it should feel like a car, like if you're used to. It should feel acceleration, braking, turning, things that you are looking for in a vehicle that you feel confident are in an EV. The charging part of it, right, and the range part of it is something I think it's going to take time. People need to see more people on the road doing it. You need to see more charging stations in your community, in your apartment complex. something that you can put in your home, and it doesn't cost much money to do that. And you can imagine you're making that transition, because in your daily life, you see it everywhere. I still think that's going to take some time for sure to get there.
Let's talk marketing. Do you believe in the Super Bowl as a marketing venue?
I
It gets
mean,
so much attention.
yeah,
There's so much buzz around that.
yeah. I mean, I think if right for the right moments in time, absolutely. I mean, you have a theater, a live theater, a stage where people are actually looking forward to seeing the commercials as much as they do sometimes the game. And
Mhm.
depending on how the game is going in that third or fourth quarter, the advertising might even be more entertaining. That's a rare moment. I think that's a rare moment for marketers. Usually we're fighting for people's attention. And so with something as big as the Super Bowl, it's still, ratings may be down here or there, but it's still a moment in time where you have a lot of people looking at their screens and really engaged. And for the commercials, they might be seeing them even a couple weeks in advance, and people voting on which one they like, and it becomes kind of this cultural moment. So for the right time, if you've got the right product, it definitely is part of our portfolio that can make sense.
How's marketing changing?
How's marketing not changing?
How's marketing not changing? Let's go.
No.
How's marketing not changing?
No, I'm just kidding. It's different today than it was, a few weeks ago, than it will be probably, months from and years from now. So it changes because culture changes. And so who we talk to, how we talk about things, the way we position the cars that we sell, the things that we, I think, focus on, and the touch points that we connect people with through design, fashion, music, art, etc. Technology is rapidly changing. So those things are changing all the time, and marketing has to change with them, because people aren't standing still. We have an attention span of a few seconds. And I just saw some data a few days ago online saying that attention spans are not only shorter because of our patterns with social media, but we can't remember things for as
Oh,
long
I
as we,
believe in that.
yeah. So with all of that, though, it's the 30-second TV spot, maybe you could argue, needs to evolve. And we have 15s and we have 6s and things like that. But we not only have to fight for people's attention, but I think we have to be memorable. And that's different today to be memorable than it was
Well, think
years
about
ago.
when you joined Toyota and you were marketing the Prius, or
Mhm.
part of the team that put that together, and think about how different the world now is today
Oh, yeah.
and what you have to consider. I'm guessing it is a long list of things that
Mhm.
has to be sorted out.
You had a
That's
few channels back then, literally,
right.
right? And broadcast was a huge one at that time. That's changed. Now we have hundreds of ways to connect with the consumer. Someone that I spoke to recently, I think, said it best, that, CMOs and marketing leaders and teams, they have a lot that they can do, right? It's a plethora of options, messaging, channels. Where do I go? How do I show up? What type of experiences do I want to create? Endless options with technology that are vast and diverse and very targeted, by the way, or very broad. So it's not so much what can I do? That's overwhelming. It's what should I do? How do I
Mm.
connect with the consumer at the right moment in time with the right message that feels like it's something that people can relate to in a way that, like we talked about before, that's about them. And that's hard when you have a mass audience sometimes that you're trying to reach. And I think you have to make people feel like it's really an individual decision, and your marketing should be more conversational and based on what you, Jason Stein, need, not what hundreds of Jason Steins might need, because your needs might be different.
And we're so specific now with how we can target and drill down to possible consumers and try to get their attention. What happens to, you mentioned it earlier, what happens to television? What happens to the traditional ABC, NBC?
They're evolving dramatically as well. I think that every, I think, major broadcast station, channel, network, etc., has evolved so dramatically with digital, different ways to come to market in terms of their content. You've got everything from streaming, podcasting, connected TV, all kinds of different ways that people watch even the same content on an iPad, on a bigger screen in their home, on a phone at the same time. So I think like I said before, right, everything in marketing is evolving. And I think even the screen. I don't even call it really television anymore. I don't know why, but the screen
The
that we
screen
watch
just
is,
depends on the size of the screen.
it does, it does. And, some people have a screen in their home that's not even actual, there's no cable, right? They just
Right.
stream through Sling or Hulu or whatever. So I think everybody has really tried to evolve, and I think broadcast has evolved dramatically. So, and they realize that, to reach consumers, you have to have content on demand that they want to see when they want to watch it. And if they want to pause it, go do something else and come back again, they need to have that flexibility.
We're in New York at the auto show, and auto shows are now coming back, at least in some fashion form, after the death of auto shows had been declared. But I think there will be thousands of people who will go through the Javits Center here on the western side of Manhattan. Do you believe in auto shows, and why?
Um, I believe in giving people as much time as we possibly can, to see what we sell and to feel it, touch it, get behind the wheel of it. And I think whether it be auto shows or other in real life experiences, ways that people can connect with a car physically, I think it's really special, and I think it's really cool. And I think auto shows is one of many different ways we can do that. I'm excited to see more evolution when it comes to auto shows. So I think, we'll see next year and the year after how things change. But I think the more we can make it personal, like we talked about, for people to come in, they may see everything through the lens of the same lens that everybody else does in the macro sense, but in the micro sense that we give people ways to capture content, to have conversations, to feel like it's a party of one, that they can choose where they want to go, and they can get as much information, they can get as much human interaction as they want, have their questions answered, get a chance to, touch the cars and see what sits right with them when they sit in that front seat, and hopefully feel like they come away with a better understanding of, yeah, that those are the handful of cars that I'm really interested in, and I'm going to go and now start my shopping.
Well, and let's face it, they're paying to come and see your product,
Hmm.
which does not happen in very many other retail experiences.
No, you're absolutely right. But again, a lot of retail experiences don't have a product that might cost you, several $1,000s. So
Right.
I
Right.
think in the scheme of things, paying $20, whatever it might be now for a general admission ticket to something like an auto show, is an investment for people that probably feels very well worth it, right? If you're going to spend thousands on a car, why not spend a little bit of money to go in and check out what's available now, and feel like you can do that in an environment that's low pressure, where you feel, you can decide where you want to go next, right? Which cars you want to see and what you want to hear about 'em.
And I'm convinced too that there was a bit of a confluence of ideas that were mixing the auto show equation. So back at the Detroit Auto Show 20 years ago, you had Jeeps that were unveiled that crashed through plate glass windows as a big splash for the media, but had nothing to do with the consumer.
Mm.
And it was declared by the media that auto shows were going down because media weren't covering auto
Mhm.
shows as much, but consumers were
Mhm.
still going to shows.
Mhm.
So whether you're in Cleveland or New York, there's still a place for those products to be displayed. And as we said earlier, you might not even see it on the lot. That might be the only place where you can go, at least for the next year or so,
Mhm.
to touch and feel.
Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
right. Exactly what we were talking about earlier about not having a lot of supply. Dealers don't have a lot of that in their lots right now. So being able to see a whole, range of different cars here in one place, gives people a chance to do that. And hopefully they like what they see, and they, like I said, start the shopping process. And they may have to wait a little while, but hopefully with a little bit of patience, they'll get what they're looking for. And hopefully it's Volkswagen.
How's marketing going to change, do you think, going forward? What are you looking at that's going to
Um, it
revolutionize
would
the
be,
marketing world?
yeah, I think it would be easy for me to say, metaverse, Web 3.0, NFTs, right? That we're going to be virtually doing everything. But what I also hear at the same time is, I think marketing needs to very much celebrate things that people can see and touch and feel, that are part of an experience, because we're just craving that right now. So I think we'll see a lot of hybrid kind of experiences happening. I think, a lot of us are really excited, like I am, about what can happen in a virtual world, where you can have conversations, you can get to know a product, you can understand what it's all about, you can do a virtual test drive, right? You can have a complete 360 experience in one place. That sounds really cool. I don't have to go to a bunch of different websites. I don't have to do a whole lot of homework. If I can arrange for that to come to me, and I can interact with people in that way, who's to say you can't interact with a dealer? right? In the metaverse at some point in time where you can have a conversation with somebody and you feel like you're getting all the information to make a confident decision, but it just feels maybe a bit more, definitely more personal and easier, and hopefully a bit more fun. I think we're a ways away from something like that. What I'd like to see is I guess a blend of both. So you have the best of in real life and you have the best of virtual. So you feel like, hey, maybe I just want to go do this part of my shopping process and do that in a virtual way. Technology has made so many, I think, inroads into gamification of experiences like a virtual test drive that you feel like, yeah, okay, I'll spend 20 minutes doing that. That's really cool. But at the same time, you still want to have an in-person conversation. You still want to talk to somebody maybe who's driven that car before. You still want to get behind the wheel and actually test drive a car. So I think we need to have both.
We've had designers on the show who talk about what they admire from a design perspective, whether it's watches or technology, architecture. As a marketer, what do you look at that you like? Where does your eye go to from a marketing standpoint, and who do you admire?
Ooh, um, gosh, I would say I admire challenger brands. I think I always have, who try to do things, I think, a little bit differently. And they definitely poke at ways to not be maybe so serious or not be so, I guess, stringent in that category. Even something like, Oatly has been in the past, right? When they first came with oat milk to the market. And it was like, what is this? How does this work? And today, now, of course, fast forward, a lot of us have oat milk and soy milk and all kinds of different milk. But they said, why can't people enjoy, oat milk? And their packaging was fun, and the way they talked about the product was approachable and fun. So brands like that are ones that I like because, I think there's always the Nikes and the Apples and Nordstroms of the world. Anybody that gives you a great experience and they do it every day, I think that's awesome too. But from a marketing perspective, I love things that are simple and breakthrough, especially categories where maybe people don't have a ton of, I don't know, interaction on a daily basis. So it feels like it could be kind of provocative and special at the same time.
When you sit at home watching your screen, the big one that's on the wall, we won't call it television, do you look at other car commercials and go, I like that, or I don't like it?
Um,
Or do you just avoid them altogether?
Candidly, I don't have a TV, so I know.
What?
Oh
Breaking news.
Breaking news, watch out. I have, but I do have a screen. I have a pretty big screen at home. So I watch content like a lot of people do these days, right? Netflix, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, etc. So my commercials, it sounds maybe funny, but I seek them out mostly on YouTube. Or if I'm watching something streaming and I pause and stop something to watch it. But I have to seek them out now. So because I have all these, paid channels that I watch every day, and there's no commercials. So
wow, the marketers are really trying hard to get to you.
Yeah, I guess. But I'm watching. I truthfully, I watch car commercials quite a bit. I think it's fun to see us imagine a world where cars are just so different in people's lives that we can have a lot of fun with it. And I think that's what we've seen the last year as we've been able to do more branding, a little bit less on the deal side, and showcase a whole wide range of people, especially women behind the wheel of a car, having a lot of fun. And I think that's really a cool thing. So
you got into the automotive business, just a final thing, to change the world with the Prius, the environmentalist from New Zealand who's going to change the world. You changing the world?
One day at a time.
One car at a time.
One car at a time. One consumer at a time. One dealer at a time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with me here in the studio at SiriusXM.
Really appreciate it, Jason. It's been a real pleasure.
Great. Kimberley Gardiner. Thank you.
Thank you.
The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein,
former publisher of Automotive News,
is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on SiriusXM Business Radio.